Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our West Haven City Council meeting tonight. Today is August 16th. My name is Carrie Call. I serve on the council and I'm the mayor pro tem, and I'd like to excuse the mayor who's not able to be here with us tonight. We will begin our meeting with our opening ceremonies. We'll have our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Morse, followed by a prayer or moment of silence from Councilmember Saunders.
Please rise and repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered together as a city and as citizens within the city of West Haven. We're thankful that we have so many residents here with us tonight, and grateful for their participation and their interest in city government and the things that are going on here. We pray for a blessing to be with us, that thy Spirit might guide and direct our thoughts, that we will be able to make the best decisions for all who are concerned. And we pray that we will continue to have a wonderful city. We ask that thou would bless us with continued moisture. We're grateful for the moisture that we've received. We're thankful for all those who serve the city, for the employees, and for those who are elected officials that serve as well. And we pray for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Council Members Morse and Saunders. We will move on to agenda item number 3, public presentation. Residents attending this meeting will be allotted 2 minutes to express a concern or ask a question about any issue that is not on the agenda. No action can or will be taken on any issues present. If you come forward, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Lacey Richards, 4741 West, 4100 South. I'm here tonight representing the Major Brent Taylor Foundation. 2 years ago, the Major Brent Taylor Foundation and their event partners sponsored a fantastic event in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of September 11th. That event has come back to Weber County after being in Davis County last year. The city was a great partner 2 years ago in helping us get the word out to those in our local community about the event. It's completely free. It's especially poignant this year. September has been declared by the state legislature to be American Founders Month. This dovetails with that very well. There will be for those who did not get a chance to attend on a previous year, there is an interactive museum that takes you through the events of September 11th, 2001. There are some community booths, there are performances, there's a touch-a-truck. We have military and service organizations from throughout the area there to answer questions, to help give local community members an opportunity to be involved in making the community a better place. With your permission, I do have a flyer for each of you. We'd like to invite the city to help us get the word out through social media. We appreciate the information that was sent out in the city newsletter. Also, as individuals, please let your friends, your neighbors know about this event. Take your family. We're looking forward to having council member Swap there at the preview breakfast. All of you have an invitation. If you could RSVP to me by the end of the month, that would be appreciated. We are still accepting volunteers. So for everyone here, both council and audience, it's a fantastic organization to volunteer for, and it's really a great experience. Even if you only have an hour or two to give, we have room for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say this is so well done. It is so worth going. And, sometimes we go through years and we forget what really happened, but this is an interactive experience as you walk through the events. One of the cool things about it is you cross a bridge from before to after. And I took my grandchildren, and I'm planning to do that again. So it is well worth your time.
And well attended the first year.
Yeah.
Very well attended.
Thanks,
So.
Lacey.
Yeah, I attended it too, and it was very powerful. So
Yep.
It's an awesome event.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to, oh, Mr. Reed.
Hi there, Jeff Reed, 4427 West, 3750 South. I'm here because I sent an email with some photographs yesterday about the Master Homeowners Association and the lack of maintenance in the area. And I know I've been told many times, and we've all been told many times, that the HOA, the city can do nothing about HOAs and CCRs and all those sorts of things. So I was really surprised today when I was copied on an email from Amy, the city attorney and one of the interim city managers, to Mike and Brian Bayless from Nilsson Homes. And basically it says, these pictures were forwarded to the city yesterday regarding further issues with the HOA space. I've requested that Dan go and check out these things and contact Nilsson Homes regarding these issues. It is quite possible that these issues might come up in the discussion this evening also. You might want to come prepared to discuss these issues. This is pretty troubling to me because I've been told that the city does not get involved in HOA-related issues, yet we are sending out an email that tells them that they may want to be prepared to discuss it. So I'm just raising the issue, and I realize we can't talk about it anymore. That's it. Thank you.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we will move to agenda item number 4, our upcoming events. Our senior lunch bunch is on August 23rd at 11:30. We encourage everyone to attend that. It is really a fun event. You can contact the city to pay for that lunch to attend with us. We have our fall rodeo scheduled for September 15th and 16th, and our evening of art on September 23rd. We'll move to item 5, council updates. Does anyone have anything to share?
Excuse me, I have a couple of updates from the Historical Preservation Committee, which I have several volunteers, and we will be meeting soon to discuss how to approach this, and would love any ideas that anyone would like to send to me. We've completed an article for the monthly newsletter called West Haven Heritage Corner, that we will have a little bit of history every month in this. It will be Mrs. Prividel's, she recently passed away at the age of 100, and she lived in West Haven for a long time, so that will be our first one. Coming up also, we are reorganizing the youth council. We lost Alan Keys, who was our amazing coordinator, and so we are desperately trying to replace him and getting organized for a new year. So we will be announcing more of that later. We've gone out with a request for anyone who wants to attend. We will go out with more, and a lot of our youth council from last year will be coming back. So we're excited to get started.
Just a couple of announcements. Coming up on September 11th, in connection with Just Serve and the National Day of Service, the city will have some opportunities within the city. I believe there's 3 projects within the city. You can go to Just Serve and sign up if anyone's interested to help out with those projects. One of them is spreading bark at Prividale Park. For those of you that have never been down at Prividale Park, it's an awesome park. It's going to be a really cool part of the city. So there's going to be some volunteer stuff going on there on the Day of Service.
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that.
Also, a couple of other smaller projects. And then just so everyone's aware, the beautification committee is they're giving out awards for Yard of the Month for August. And there's some information on the city social media site. And if anyone needs additional information, I can give them some information on that. But basically, you can nominate your yard or someone else's, and there's a first and second place award that will be awarded, and there'll be a gift certificate over it that you can use either. You can either choose Dallas Greens or go over to the nursery. So it's going to be kind of a cool little thing to incentivize people to keep their yards nice, or to kind of basically recognize those that are already doing it. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Thank you.
Any others? Okay. We will move on to item 6, action on our consent agenda. We have item A, City Council meeting minutes held on August 2nd, 2023.
I just had one question, Emily, on number 12 of the meeting minutes, where city council asked for a special meeting to review city properties. I wasn't sure, that just might be me, but we were going to review, remind me.
So it was going to be properties so that you could plan your grants.
Okay, so, okay,
But if you want me to expand on it in the minutes, I can certainly.
that would be nice. When I read it, I was like, I can't remember what we were talking about, but
Parks and stuff.
yeah, city park properties, or, just maybe a little bit clarification would be great.
Absolutely. Also, Ryan Saunders had one addition to it. He asked that the nuisance ordinance be looked at to make sure that Green Farms was not in violation of it, so we're going to add that to the record as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone have anything else? Okay. We'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the city council minutes for the meeting held August 2nd, 2023, with the corrections stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve our city council minutes with those amendments. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Swap,
Aye.
Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
Councilmember Saunders,
Aye.
and I am an aye. Thank you. All right, item number 7, our city manager update on our core values posters and bleachers.
So with the core value posters, last meeting, the mayor had asked if, since we passed the resolution adopting the core values, if we could get the posters made. And I think Emily knows best where that status is. We asked Dan to look into doing that because he had presented the core values, to you, and he said that he would definitely get on that.
So it's not much of an update, just because we did contact a company in order to make the posters, but we haven't heard back from them quite yet. We just want to make sure that we get a price before we approve it.
But it is in process.
And those are to be posted throughout the offices.
We were gonna order 3, right? 1 for this building and then 2 for,
One for the sewer building and then also one for Public Works as well.
Perfect.
so that's where we're at with that. The bleachers, you'd asked for us to find out what was going on with the bleachers. We did get a grant for those bleachers. When the grant was applied for, there was a quote from Belson Outdoors, which we found that Emily had contacted them. They, for the most part, they're willing to honor the quote that they gave. It's just there's going to be an added charge because of shipping has gone up. It's going to take them 10 to 12 weeks to get here. The quote did not include assembly, and they're shipped in pieces. Emily asked for an additional quote on the assembly, just in case we wanted to be able to consider it. So that is where those are. They would not be able to be available for the fall rodeo because of the 10 to 12 weeks that it's going to take to get here. But we're in the process of getting that so that we can get them and have them. There's still discussion as to what we're doing with the footings, whether or not we would, like, Brock's crew would be doing it. There was a whole big long email chain with Brock as to what was. Is there anything more than that? Just that we're trying to decide what to do with the footings.
Yeah, they just were talking back and forth on how to plan it, so I don't think that they actually came to an end result.
So
Do we have any sense from Brock if having them put it together might be too big of an ask at this point? And
he's worried about that, like the liability, and having somebody professionally do it, just so that we make sure that they are put together correctly and, by people who do this sort of thing all the time.
makes sense.
But we're looking into that as to, how to proceed forward with that.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy. Does anyone have any other questions? Perfect. Okay, item 8, discussion and possible action, our Green Farm Master Development Agreement. We would invite Nielsen Homes to come up, and Amy, if you have anything to preface it with.
So, what has been going on is that there's been questions as to where everything is with the Green Farms MDA. There is, Green Farms has the original MDA, and then it has three amendments. The last amendment was entered into September of 2022, and it gave some very specific deadlines. What you have in front of you, and also what will be entered in the record, as a document in the record for the meeting, is what Mike Flood has prepared, and it goes through and it shows, the areas. It shows what is listed out in the completion date, and what the anticipated delivery date is, and then basically that third column is where we're really at, and then there's notes alongside that too. The city attorney went through and looked at this. It took me about 2 hours to go through all of this, all of the paperwork that was also sent, which you all should have a copy of. There were different documents that Mike sent on Friday that I sent off to, emailed you guys. There was paperwork regarding Weber Basin. There was paperwork regarding Rocky Mountain Power. There was, and these are emails that Nielsen Homes has provided us. There was stuff from UDOT. There was this document that he had included, and then along with the comments made, because the staff, 4 of our department heads got together and went through what was originally provided, which when you're looking at this color copy, these big yellow sections that have that update, the original, this original document didn't have those, and 4 of our department heads went through and looked at this and looked at what's out on the ground, and that's where the staff report came from our staff. And then Mike and Brian Bales went through and made comments on that regarding where, what their representations of where things are. My issues as the city attorney, when I went through it, the big issues that I had were like with the water feature and the pavilions. So in the First Amendment, it has, it lists hardscapes, softscapes, and then it has like the water feature and the pavilions. With the hardscapes and the softscapes, there were some outs. I guess that's the best way to phrase it, regarding, all right, if there's issues with Weber Basin, they have an ability to move that anticipated delivery date. If there's problems with UDOT, there's that ability to do that. With the water feature and the pavilions, there's actually not that in there. And there's nothing in any of the documentation regarding the $60,000 that is that they're referring to. This budget is 60,000 is their internal budget. It's not one that has been listed in any of the documents. There is issues regarding whether or not Weber Basin would be supportive of the water feature. Late, it was probably about 4:30 or so, Brian emailed regarding an email from Weber Basin saying that they do not support using their water for anything except for outside irrigation. So filling pools. I mean, and this is also on their website. And I didn't have a chance to forward it to you because it was like 4:45, 4:30, something like that. So I apologize. I will forward that to you. But they do have a policy regarding not wanting to use, their water for anything other than outdoor irrigation. And they put that in an email that they would discourage that. What you want to do with the water feature, that's something that you need to discuss. That's a policy issue, because whether or not they'll be allowed to modify that requirement or not, to do something else. They did, with what was given to you, there is a Mike stated that there was a diagram of the water feature that they would like to possibly put in. You need to know that if there's a modification regarding this water feature to something else, it has to go back through the Planning Commission to modify the MDA, that third amendment of the MDA. They then have a public hearing, and then it would come back to you to decide what to do with that. But it is, that water feature was supposed to be installed June 1st, and so they are out of compliance with that. The pavilion, same thing. They were supposed to be installed June 1st. There is nothing in there regarding an extension. I was informed yesterday during the meeting that Brian and Mike and I had that it's in house that they are designing and building these. They believe that they will be done. Well, this is saying that yesterday they informed me that their building permits were granted by us, but
for the
like I said, they are out of compliance with that. They're thinking that the completion of those pavilions would be October 15th. One of my other issues, which I thought was an issue, is not, and it's on the second page, regarding the construction of the cul-de-sac or hammerhead. It's, and I don't know if this new, hold on, I'm looking at this new version real quick. Yeah, the new version still has the typo. But the new version shows that construction of cul-de-sac or hammerhead being October 31st, 2022, and that the done date would be October 31st, 2023. That is inaccurate. It is done now. So it is not, they are actually not out of compliance with that. It's just, it was a typo. On that same page, one of the other issues I had is Area 3 with the hardscape. Has to do with the park benches. I was wanting them to provide verification regarding when those were ordered, because they were supposed to be installed. The hardscape was supposed to be completed October 31st. There is this anticipated delivery date, that would be like the dedication for being June 1st, and things are not completed. However, there is the Rocky Mountain Power issue that they have been waiting on, but the question was about the benches. When were they ordered? The community center, and the pond, really those things are moving along. There haven't been any missed deadlines. I had to call, one of the reasons I called them yesterday had to do with figuring out where the improvement agreement and escrow was, because they submitted it by May 23rd. They did what they were supposed to do. We have not, we haven't finished making decisions as to, because there's a cost estimate, and the cost estimate goes through and it outlines what Nielsen Homes has done, what they're responsible for, what the city's responsible for, what we're both responsible for together, and then there's alternatives that we can add on also. That's the part that the city has not finished yet, and I think it's just because of the change that we've experienced. However, Emily and I are planning on, within the next week, trying to get together with Colt and Brock and Scott and Ed, probably Ryan, to sit down and look at that cost estimate as to, hey, what add-ons is the city interested in having, to be able to bring it back to the council so that you guys can decide yes or no as to whether or not that's something. And the Nielsen Homes has to agree to those if we look at it wanting to be able to share expenses, and it's a 60-40 split. The other stuff that were concerns were listed out in the employee, what the department heads produced with the staff. And there's some things that I think that they have addressed, like the irrigation issues with the stakes that are going to be rebar, and there are other issues that are still, there's a question as to where they're really at with some of those things, like the stream bed issues. Should have received an email that I forwarded from Ed, that Ed went out yesterday, took pictures of the stream beds. And so that there are issues there because there's significant mud, and nothing has been done with those, with the erosion, and different things like that. With the trails, Ed also took some pictures regarding the one specific. It was the sewer repair, and there's a big square that's cut out of the pavement that is a pretty big tripping hazard. When I sent those on to Mike and Brian today, Mike sent back an email that he had sent to to one of their contractors regarding marking that off as a hazard, but also getting it, fixed as quickly as possible. But there was no date provided at that time. But again, that was this afternoon. The landscaping issues have been outlined. So those are, city attorney, those are the things that I was looking at as to where they're at with things. So now's the time for you guys to ask Nielsen Homes questions.
Can I actually recap you on a couple things real quick, just to make sure I have it correctly? You said that the pavilions not being done puts them out of compliance.
What was that again?
The pavilion.
Pavilions,
Yes.
that puts them out of compliance on that section. The water feature puts them out of compliance. And then area 3, the park benches. So those are 3 definites that I heard you say that are out of compliance on the MDA.
Yeah.
And then the escrow not being complete, that's more on our side that we,
That is on our
okay?
side.
And then the stream bed and the trail repair, does that put them out of compliance on that open space?
Not exactly, because they've installed it, but then there's been issues that need to be remedied. So
Okay.
it's a different thing that whether or not they installed it. I mean, because like the sewer repair, that wasn't anticipated. They had to cut into the and that wasn't something that they had already installed it. They had to, but there had to be a repair done. So it's just needing to repair. The like with the pavilions and with the park bench, there's some additional things though. So they're out of compliance with having them installed, but with the pavilions, they also are waiting for Rocky Mountain Power. So it's
And
kind
the
of
water
a,
feature, they've been denied by
But the water feature wasn't denied until just
Denied, it
now.
was discouraged, right?
Let me read to you what they said. Hold on just a second. Okay, so this is what Casey Potter stated. He's the staff engineer for Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, which this was evidently sent August 14th at 7:56 a.m. Hi, Brian. Getting back with you on your questions. We don't allow water features in our policy when using secondary water. With their customer service page link, this is what it also says. Hold on just a second. It says secondary water knowledge. And it has some bullet points. To be used only in outdoor irrigation, not for filling pools or ponds. And then it just lists several other things. Weber Basin maintains the second largest irrigation system in the western United States, and just some other general information. So even though they haven't completed it, I don't know whether or not that they're really, I mean, they're out of compliance, but they're not out of compliance because there's issues with Weber Basin. However, they did not actually file the application with Weber Basin until like June 26th or 27th.
Which was after it was due?
It's actually due June 30th, and so
Okay.
right, that's a bit of what the frustration is. But with the water feature, it's kind of looking like it's. I mean, one, we live in a desert, and so whether or not that it's a wise thing to have a water feature anyway. But if Weber Basin is saying we don't want our water shares to be used, to do a water feature, that we need to talk about.
There's currently a water feature in the development. What water is that using?
It's not working, so it's not using water.
It is tied to secondary.
And that was done. That was done.
And that was,
That
I
was
think we
done.
I
need to
guess,
have Mike
approved?
come up
The
to Mike
connection
Flood
was
come
done
up
well in
to-
advance of the drought last year. And sorry, there's a lot of people talking. Are we good? Go ahead, Amy.
I'm just saying Mike just needs to come up to the mic so that the people on Zoom.
I appreciate that. Mike Flood with Nelson Homes. Just to augment that or to answer the question, that water feature is owned and maintained by the Master HOA. We are members of the board of directors, so I can answer it, succinctly and with good information. We've had it troubleshooted. The fountain hasn't worked for the last 2 years, I don't believe, maybe a year and a half.
that's correct.
We've had it troubleshooted, and the pump itself is blown. It's got to be replaced. I don't know why water gets in. When you're dealing with water features, you're dealing with mechanical issues, electricity, other things that ultimately over time can go wrong. We are using secondary water for that, and whether or not Weber Basin would, if they saw that, they would probably shut it down because it is not in. When I say we, I mean that Nielsen Homes built it that way, and that's how water features around the county that I've built have been built with that. But most of them haven't been in Weber Basin's purview. They've been in other water districts' purviews that don't have the same, or that didn't have the same issue at the time.
So has the water policy changed since you put in that first water feature?
I don't think I can answer that. We neither of us were here when that first water feature was installed.
Right.
We just know what Weber Basin is saying now, and their standards have changed a
Oh,
lot
they
this
have,
last
yeah,
year.
we know that.
Just landscape standards. Amazing what they're saying you can and can't do now because of drought conditions, and so. But I couldn't answer that.
I think the current water feature presents a problem itself then, because either it can't be used and that's not great for the residents that live there, and it's a water feature that's not even being used. It's or it can, and maybe the policy has changed. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
can we
but if
find out?
The problem is if it's an HOA thing, that's their issue. I mean, just a little thing to kind of address what Jeff Reed, addressed earlier. the city doesn't enforce
No,
HOA.
I agree. I agree.
But when it comes to certain things like weeds, an HOA is just like any other landowner, and we're able to, as the city, be able to enforce like
Right.
nuisance issues.
No, I agree with
So-
that. I agree with that. But I'm bringing up that water feature because clearly that one's using secondary water and was allowed at some point.
Yeah. Now, whether it was given approval by Weber Basin, I don't know. I've been doing development a long time, and I've done water features in other communities. We've not necessarily gone to the water company and asked them for permission to run water that we had shares to. Weber Basin's a little different. We don't own water shares, you own water rights, or water fee, or water lease rights. So you don't own the water that goes through the pipes. You don't own the water it's a lease right. You purchase water.
Right.
So-
Right. So I guess if you had to ask for approval from him on this water feature, then someone from Nielsen Homes must have had to ask for permission on the,
I can't
Current.
answer that. I don't think, could you answer that?
No, but I can assume a lot, but I don't know if that helps right now.
Wouldn't a simple solution just connect to the domestic water and put a meter in, and the HOA pays for that water meter, and they can have their feature work?
That would be a solution, yeah.
And also on the other water feature,
Yeah, and
Just
the
tying
HOA
in.
would have to decide, do they want to pay for culinary water for that? And with the other feature, so Ms. Hugie referred to the plan that it's just a conceptual plan, but it would be changing from a water feature to a park monument, to a more elaborate park monument, and not have a water component to it. So you wouldn't need to try and put culinary in that, and the city wouldn't have to deal with aging pump systems. I mean, this is not, this one that's in Green Farm that the Master Association is responsible for. It's not an uncommon thing for the pump to go bad over a certain few years when it's an underground, it's in a tank, again, I've done these in other communities, and I can tell you a couple of them that have just turned them into nice features that don't have water. They've planted them with planters, and they've done things because the communities didn't want the water feature because of the expense and the maintenance over time.
So if you did plant it with plants, how are you going to water those plants?
You can do that with irrigation water.
So you
there's sprinklers all around it.
so it's only a water feature as a fountain or waterfall or something like that?
In this particular plan that was provided, this concept plan for a replacement of a water feature, I mean, I don't show any plants in
It's
that
on-
square
it's on
planter.
page 3.
Yeah, it's page 3 in that packet.
By the way, you guys might want to turn to it. It might be helpful.
It doesn't have any planting shown in the square area where the windmill is. That windmill's like, I think it's 24 feet high, 23, it's a huge windmill. But this would have, we would have a landscape architect go through and really do this upright. This is just a quick conceptual that I put together in order to show you if it's something that could be considered a replacement of a water feature that could become a nuisance to the city long-term as that is a city park. And we have the restriction from the water department, from the irrigation company, that we can't use irrigation water. This is an alternative that we're proposing.
And Amy, you said that any alternatives have to go back to the planning commission?
They do, but one of the reasons why they're bringing it up to you, to the council tonight, is to find out what your thoughts are, because they don't want to go propose it as an amendment to the planning commission and then come back and have the council say.
And we
there's
want to
just
do up an
no way.
elaborate plan. I mean, this is just my Adobe CADing, so to speak. It's using Adobe Photoshop, or Adobe, and creating a concept, rough concept. We'd like to do something that really makes this the center focal feature of Green Farm, next to the community center that's being built, so.
Yeah, you guys see that? It's page 3.
Well, I do think one of the issues for these residents that are here and those that live there is that you're talking about this water feature that hasn't worked for a year and a half, but you knew that, and you didn't do anything about it. That's where their frustrations come in. You knew it was the pump. At some point,
No, I knew it was the pump about 2 months ago, and then I told them to hold off, because as a master HOA, we've got to make a decision.
well,
If
sure.
it's gonna cost so much to fix, do we levy a special assessment? Who pays for that? It's an association. so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But if it was broke a year and a half ago and you're just looking into it a year later,
Yep.
I can completely understand their frustration,
I can too.
right?
Yeah.
And not much, I mean, you guys all of a sudden get some work started when you were in default, when the residents came. Now they're back and there's all these things that are going wrong, and all of a sudden you guys are out there. Let's clean it up. Let's do all these things, but it had to be escalated to the city. I don't think that bodes well for Nielsen Homes, right? It's not, everybody's not saying, what a great builder we have in this situation. They're frustrated and disappointed. And here we are now figuring out, well, you are in default, so what do we do?
Yeah.
Well, let's make some ideas, and then are you going to wait on those again? That's not fair to these residents. As a large home builder who should take care and pride in what they do, I don't see that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I echo Councilmember Call. We've been here before where we sat here and we went through the MDA and gave, the deadlines came from you guys. They didn't even come from us. The deadlines came from you guys. And then here we are, we're past deadlines. I don't know if there were any conversations to the city prior to getting to those deadlines. I don't know if Nielsen Homes came to the city and said, hey, look, we're not going to meet this deadline. Let's talk about it.
We didn't.
Yeah, and to me, that's an issue as well. I mean, there was no communication. It almost feels like, and I felt like this last time we had this discussion, that Nielsen Homes just keeps moving past these deadlines, trying not to say anything, and it's just not transparent.
So I'll take responsibility for that. When I was given charge of this in August of last year to get all of this work done, which should have been done over a 3-year period or done 3 years ago over a 2-year period.
And sorry, Mike, to interrupt you. That was done before our time.
Before we
And so
came here.
we're Nelson Homes, and we have to own those issues. We're not trying to hide from that, Nina.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're trying to push several $1 million worth of landscaping infrastructure to be installed. I mean, there's stretches of time where it's ideal to put in.
That should have started a long time ago.
Agreed.
In all honesty.
Agreed.
And we acknowledge
Agreed.
that, and we're trying to clean as much of this up as we can. But given the fact that we've put in probably 85 to maybe 90% of the obligations that we committed to last year, and there are a few that Amy's pointed out that we are in default in, we should have been communicating earlier. Some of those things we have extenuating circumstances, but we have moved mountains to try to get a lot of this work done. And there's times to install infrastructure or landscaping that are easier than others. This has been a tough stretch, given the fact that we've had incredibly wet year and it turned very hot very quickly. It's been hard and there are watering restrictions.
We had a very similar discussion last year about the seasons and how it impacted installing anything last year. So I get it, but we're always going to have an issue, right?
Well, it's not solely the problem, but I think the city sees this from your perspective as well. I mean, it's been difficult to get some of this stuff done. Is that the sole reason that we haven't done our obligations? No. But
Right.
it's something that we're trying to consider and figure out. There are things that we've dropped the ball on that we need to own and we need to be responsible for. And there are plans that we have in place to put those things into I guess, compliance. We do, Councilmember Call, take pride in what we do.
But these
And
residents
quite
haven't seen
frankly,
that.
Quite frankly,
because of there's a few things there are several. There's a significant amount of things that need to get done. But if you drive out there, that's what we do. That's our living. That's our livelihood, and we take that very seriously. And there are some things that we haven't gotten done. But we are a home builder. We're in Weber County. There's a lot of residents out there that are happy. There are some that aren't. There are some that are. And so it's both sides. Those people aren't here tonight. We're not, again, I'm sounding defensive, and I'm not intending to or meaning to. And I think we're ready to own the things that we haven't gotten done, the 3 that Amy identified. But there is, 80 to 90% of this work has been done, and we're pushing forward as aggressively as we can.
But that wasn't timely either.
And
You
it
kind of
wasn't.
want a pat on the back. I've done 80%,
No, that's not what we're
right?
looking for.
And that's how they feel,
Right.
the way that you talk about it.
We're not looking for the pat on
So-
the back. To finish my point, I take responsibility for not communicating to city periodically if we were going to have something delayed. My nose was to the ground, get it done, and, you know, you don't want to know the staff I had and I didn't have and that I lost and I had to replace and all the issues with different, I mean, I can produce hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of emails of this and that. That doesn't get us anywhere. We have things that are completed. We have things that are near completed. We have some things that per the MDA have been completed for some time, mowable grass. But have I felt comfortable turning that over or even approaching that yet with the city? Because I don't feel comfortable with the condition it's in? No. So we've been bearing the burden of maintaining that. And when I say burden, I'm talking financial burden. We've maintained it, and I'm working with a variety of contractors because I want it to be to a level that when we come to the city and turn it over, you can be proud of what we're giving you. Now, that said, rather than go back and forth with email with staff and why didn't you do this or let's see all these pictures, I'd love to have an on-site walkabout with your city engineer, with the Parks Department, with my contractor, with my landscaper, and we make a list of these things. Now, the metal stakes that have been talked about, that was actually on my docket with my landscaper several months ago. It hasn't happened because of a variety of things that have gone on this year, and I can't give you the exact reason why. He's in the process of and doing those. It'll take time. But I have no problem admitting to or agreeing to that. That wasn't in the standard. It wasn't something the city said before. It was something Brock brought up and said, hey, what you've got, those treated stakes you got in there, it's all fine and good, but over time they will rot. And I would rather see a metal stake. I'm willing to do that. I'm putting there's some financial burden to that, but more so it's going to take time, and I'm working through that. The stream, the stream's installed. If you were to look at the design that was submitted to the city for that stream from top to bottom, there's about 2.5 feet of fall, maybe 3 feet of fall over about a 1,500 foot stretch.
Do you want to point this out, Mike?
There is a section here, or there is a page here that says lower section. That's just the lower. It's the second page of the. Well, it's like really page 5 or page 4. But what I was going to describe though, in general, that stream that dry stream bed goes from top to bottom at a very flat grade. That's how it was designed. We can't create more grade than what we've got because we're dealing with storm drain. This is a storm drain. It carries the storm drain water. So instead of piping all the storm drain, we thought, hey, let's propose an open stream bed where the storm drain will flow. In essence, there is a section. We had this whole thing topoed about 2 weeks ago, and it was at Ed's request. We did it. He and I talked about 3 weeks ago or so. Surveyor went out there and topoed the whole thing, got survey shots all the way down. There is a section of pipe in that lower section. You can see it highlighted in red, or these circles in red, that was installed higher than it's designed. That's my contractor's fault. He's in the process of getting that removed and dropped down and replaced. Can it be dropped down a whole foot? No, but we can drop it down enough that we create more flow. There are a couple spots, and I don't expect you to understand this or want to understand it, but if you look at the grades along that section of the creek, that's the section that has some standing water in it. There are a couple points that are higher than the grade point up above it. So you basically have a little bit of a hill. Now, we're talking, if it's flat, it's got a slight, maybe 3-inch hump, but that 3-inch hump can cause a standing pool of water if there's storm water that goes down it and then it stops and whatever's left sits there until it evaporates. He's going to go in and restructure that. The one issue, and I brought it up, and I think it's in this deliverables update, but I've talked about this with the city and with the staff, is that in Green Farm, there are different areas of water table. You would think it would all be the same, but it's not. And we found that out as we've gone in and dug different phases of the subdivision. For some reason, this water table in this stretch of the creek seems to be higher, because you can go down to the detention basin lower than this, there's no water in it. So somehow this is being charged with water because it's stayed there.
Sorry, the detention basin where?
There's a little detention basin at the very west end of this dry creek bed. It's down at the bottom. It's the corner. I don't know the roads of Green Farm Way and 3750.
Lower in elevation,
3750.
but
So
drier because
So,
of
so
groundwater.
what that's telling us is there's some water perched there, and it's in the ground. And he went and cleaned, I'm not sure if the pictures Ed sent yesterday or today are from yesterday, because a week ago, I had him go and have my contractor go and scratch the bottom, the cobble that's in the bottom of the stream bed to get flow, and those pictures don't indicate that. Now there's water about this much, and it's about this wide all the way down. So we've got to drop the pipe, see if we can get it out. Ultimately, if that water, if we can't get that to flow through there, the next option is going to be we ought to pipe that stretch if nobody wants that open thing, because there's no way to get more elevation, there's no way to get more fall, and it's not a matter of design, it's a matter of how much elevation you have from point A to point B and everything in between. So we're willing to we're researching that. We're going to drop this pipe and see if that does it. But if it doesn't do it, we've got to come back. And so we performed on it, right? But the function of it isn't to the standard the city would like to see. So we may have to revise that because it's within a purview of, hey, this isn't functioning. So call it it's in warranty, call it hasn't been turned over yet. It hasn't. It's still in our purview. So
There's a few more points on the stream bed that I'd like to talk about, but do you guys have any questions about what Mike's?
I gave you probably more than you wanted to hear
Yes.
about that.
That's a lot of detail, but did you have any other kind of questions or thoughts that you'd like to know about that? The silt is still a problem. And so we've taken care of that. There was a lot of erosion that happened, and so we've taken care of that. Our contractor.
We're taking care of that. The upper section of this stream has some silt in it, and it's from a sprinkler that was in a wooden stake that washed out. And so that metal stake will change that. But that sprinkler has been washing silt, and Ed's right, there's about 6 inches through about a 15, 20-foot section of that upper section.
And so
That'll
within the
all
next
be
2
cleaned
weeks-
out within the next couple of weeks. That'll all be cleaned out. The problem will be mitigated that's causing the washout. We'll restructure the bank, and then we'll bring in the hydroseeder again this fall and have him do a lot of touch-up around these areas where we've had to do some repair and maintenance work.
So there's 3 issues that we heard is the standing water. Hopefully that explanation kind of sufficed there. There was a design bust in those 2 red circles. We're lowering the elevation of that pipe to see if that solves the problem. If that doesn't solve the problem, then to Mike's point, we're gonna have to pipe that area so that the problem goes away. It's solved.
Because water in a flat pipe or in a pipe, even though it's flat, will flow.
Yeah, so does that make sense? So that's the standing water issue. The silt issue, we'll be cleaning that up in the next 2 weeks. The third issue is the erosion on the banks, and we're gonna go through there and armor the banks that have been eroded with larger boulders and take care of those issues. And to us, these are all reasonable concerns that the city is addressing. We've been concerned about them and intended to clean them up. This is kind of a blue tape item. If you think about walking through your house, it's like there are things like this that just happen with infrastructure and parks. The city deals with it on the park side. We're ready to take care of these things, and this is the time to do that. So we're trying to own those things and take care of that. But that was one of the concerns that was clearly addressed by the residents, by Amy, by the staff, and I'm sure all of you have been concerned about that as well. Dry creek bed wise, are there any other concerns, comments, questions that you all have? I mean, I'd like to move to other things, but
One of the questions I have is, from the city standpoint, we're concerned that these areas are going to be working properly when the city takes them over.
Yeah.
Are you willing to make sure that they are before they are turned over to the city? Because so far, it just seems like there's a lot of these areas that aren't working
Currently,
properly.
nothing's been turned over to the city, and that's one of the reasons why.
Okay.
Well, the city, in the MDA, the city has to accept them. So they have to meet our standard before they can say all they want, but we say, no, actually, it's not what we want. And you were mentioning earlier, like, I would prefer to do a walkthrough and have everybody come through. Well, then you should have put that in the MDA.
Yeah.
You had in the MDA, I will give you the letters. I will give you the information. So to say that this is how we should do it is not correct.
But by the way, that's not throwing shade on your staff or anybody. I'm saying I would like to do that moving forward. I don't think it has to be in the MDA that staff who is going to be taking this over and I do a walkthrough and look at all these things instead of having to fight them through email and have it sprayed to everybody and anybody. The staff is there.
we can do a better
No,
job.
I think it's a great idea to do a walkthrough.
Yeah.
But you got to follow through with what it says. And that was to provide the city the information.
Yeah, no, we can do a better job of communication for sure.
I actually have a possible suggestion. Really, everybody's concerned about accountability. I mean, that's what the city's been concerned about the whole time, and they're meeting their deadlines, and it sounds like they are, wanting to communicate better too. I think that, and this is not going to fix everything, but the possibility of scheduling them to come back like on September 20th to give us an update so that we're not,
Yeah.
just waiting until we get more complaints, but we have them come back in a meeting in September. Because a lot of the things that they list out in this sheet, there's a lot of them that, in theory, they're saying that will be completed in September.
By then, yeah.
And whether it's Rocky Mountain Power stuff or whether or not it's like the park benches are supposed to be in
The pavilions.
pavilions, like the landscape with Area 1, there's, they're anticipating wanting to turn over, like at the end of, September. There's a lot of these things that they're looking at wanting to turn it over to us in September. So whether or not, I'm just saying as a mechanism for accountability.
And
see
would it
about
make sense
scheduling them
to
come
even
back.
schedule a week ahead of time, a walkthrough with whoever wants to come? All of you are welcome to come, but definitely Ed.
Well, you can't do that unless we notice it up as a public meeting.
Okay, good call.
If it's more than
That's why, you have
a
staff.
certain number.
But Ed, but staff Brock, Ed, whoever needs to
May-
come.
Well, but-
Maybe a couple members of the council that can represent. I know that's not disallowed.
No, but, I think the point, though, is that you've had that opportunity all along to just call.
Sure, and again, I'll
Ed
take
and Brock have
responsibility
been
for
more than
not
happy to
having
do that.
communicated progress. My nose was to the ground, get it done, and didn't bother at all to notify. I'll take that.
I think that some of the residents might want to go on the walkthrough too, so that they can ask their questions to you and state their concerns. So I think that pointing that out to them and letting them have a one-on-one with you and show you what they're concerned about would be a good idea.
We're happy to do that. That'd be great. That's a good suggestion. Kim, we'll get that scheduled and let anybody know who wants to come and talk about it. I think that'd be great.
I do. I mean, I think it's a good idea to, come back with what you have. But again, even in you discussing this, we're going to do the stream bed. You said we intend to do that.
Yeah.
That's not promising to them or to us as a
What would you
council
want us to say? How would you want us to say that?
that it will be done.
It will be done.
It will be done here.
It will be done.
So the wording of things means a lot. In the MDA, this is what it says. So I look at language, I look at words, and if you're saying we intend to do it, well, that's a definite maybe.
So the creek bed, yeah.
I'm
okay.
not saying you're not going to do it, but the language you're using is not
We will do it.
right.
Brian knows me by nature. I'm unwilling to commit to some things because there's some things beyond my control. But I intend to get it done. Now, I have 3 contractors that are involved in that. We've already talked. They already have given me a game plan. But yeah, the plan is to have it done. That stream bed, get it reworked. I have no control over when power gets pulled through my power lines. By Rocky Mountain Power. We have been given clear power to panel on 3 of the 5, but they're still waiting for an address plaque on the box before they'll do it. It's just, it's the little things going back and forth. We're close, but I couldn't say power is going to be done by this date because I have no control over that. I have control over the things I can do to get it done. And I will commit to you today that, every waking hour at work is spent on this stuff. Right? Brian knows that. It consumes a lot of my day and my time, not just in the last 2 weeks. It's been that way since this time last year. And I realize it to you and to these residents, I realize it sounds like lip service. But I will say, I have a group of contractors that have moved a lot of dirt, put in a lot of pipe, and done things that typically would take longer. And I appreciate, I've fed them lunch twice, I've given them sweatshirts, I've done everything I can to keep them motivated. I appreciate their work, and I don't want that to be discounted, that they have done a lot. We have some things left to do to finish it, but I don't want it to be discounted by anybody, including myself. I've told them, hey, I want you guys to know, even though I'm pounding you hard to get to the finish line, I sure appreciate all you've done to this point. But don't leave me hanging. We've got to get this done because we've made commitments to the city, and we have fallen on our face on a few of those commitments. And prior to Brian and I being involved, our company fell on its face to these residents and to you. For 3-4 years, how many ever years that stuff should have gone in, we can keep apologizing, but we all know it wasn't done.
Let me ask you this. Are you behind on any of the building, of the houses? Are you behind schedule on those?
Are we behind schedule on them? I couldn't answer that because I'm not involved in the building side. Is that a different process and is involved a different, they have their process is quite a bit different than taking raw ground and creating
Sure, yeah,
landscape.
sure. They're building
But I couldn't answer
houses
that.
and
Yeah, I couldn't answer that. But
other contractors are over here
Assume
putting
they're
in
not.
landscaping. But
Yeah,
my
let's assume they're
point
not.
to that is that I'm pretty sure you're not. In fact, I see them going up all the time. I guess I don't understand why that's always on time, but this is always behind.
Nina,
And I still have an issue with that.
you have, like, we have taken the cost for all of these improvements and set them in a bank account and said we can't touch that money. That was a wise move that the city made.
Right.
And it drives us crazy that we don't have access to those funds. We are as motivated as anybody to get this stuff done. We are motivated. We are pushing forward. Now, there are some things that
Can you speak into the mic?
Sorry. Yeah, we are motivated to get that stuff done. I guess if you want to get into the specifics of some of these things, we can talk about those. But like, we want to release those funds. Mike has other things that he needs to be doing. If the suggestion is we don't take pride in our work and that we're I guess incapable, I guess is maybe a connection that I'm hearing. Inferred.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it seems to be.
homes take priority,
It-
but this doesn't.
That's what I'm saying, and it's to me, it's been that way the entire time, and that's why all of these projects are always delayed. They're always behind schedule. They're always past their deadlines.
One of the things that I think, I'm hearing from the citizens as well is, and maybe you guys can address this too, is, some of the things that have to do with the HOA that haven't been kept up. And so while it's not specific to the MDA, it does kind of reflect on, Nielsen's commitment level to follow through on, maintaining these things once they are done. And so can you address those concerns and how that's being dealt with? Because obviously there's some areas that just haven't been maintained.
Do you want to take that one?
I'll attempt that. HOAs are a necessary feature for projects like this. Some people like HOAs, some people hate them with a passion. Some have lived in HOAs and seen them function and seen them function well during times and then function not well during times, and others have never lived in one, and so it doesn't feel right ever. When I came on the scene, I came to work for Nielsen Homes 2.5 years ago. About a year later, I was brought in and involved in these particular projects, and particularly this HOA. There was a company that was managing the HOA. A single guy. He had a partner. She passed away. He was overwhelmed. The guy's a really good guy. He does a great job with small HOAs. This overwhelmed him. We brought in another company, and right or wrong, some of the residents like them, some don't. Larger management company, larger staff, the ability to handle things. But it takes time just to get things up and going. Then when you're trying to find maintenance companies to bid on your work, and at certain prices based on fees that have been set and have been held for several years and not upped and not changed. And that's not any resident's fault. It's, as a board, you're charged with the responsibility of setting a fee, collecting those fees, and then paying for services from those fees.
Based on a budget.
Based on a budget. Well, we've worked hard to find a maintenance company. The maintenance company is doing it before. Big problem. So we heard the residents, and we experienced ourselves. We don't like it, so we went and found another maintenance company. Bottom line is, the company that's been doing the work this year is no better than the one before. And in some cases, we could say it's worse. Do I fire them in the middle of the summer when I don't have another alternative? I can't. And there are a few members of this congregation or group that's here tonight that are board members of their own sub-HOA. And they know what I'm talking about. You're always hounding these landscape companies or these services companies to do the level of standard that you hired them to do. Crazy thing is, companies, including the one that's doing the work out there right now, is talking about raising their prices 20% next year because they have more work than they need, and they know they're doing a crappy job. At least I bring it to their attention regularly. I forward emails that I get. I send them my own emails and pictures, and the bottom line is, it is a constant battle to try and find the company that can do the right job, that can do the quality work, do it within your budget, and be on time. Now, this year posed a really bad problem, and I have expressed this in detail to some of the members of this group, and I know they understand it and appreciate it. I hope they appreciate it, but we all experienced the wettest winter on record, that at least in my lifetime. What we experienced this year, which was 3 winters in a row, right? We didn't experience one winter. Winter went to almost May, and then it went from winter to summer in a week. We didn't get a 6-week spring, an 8-week spring. So this landscape maintenance company, who's hired to do our work, who's hired to mow all that 160,000 square feet of sod that I installed last fall, they're hired to mow that, and they can't get to it for 6 weeks because they have all their other clients too. That isn't just mowing; it's spring cleanup in their gardens and in their flower beds. And I'm the guy that came on last, right? So it's been a challenge. This whole year has been a challenge to play catch up, and then to get the grass and everything to a standard, and then to move forward. There's weeds out there that they are continually concerned about, and I get it. I'm with them on that. I can't answer to the way the landscaping was installed before. There's no weed mat under that bark out there. I can't. I'm talking about the master HOA areas. I'm talking about the master HOA areas now, which you've received emails on. You've received pictures. You've received, Mike. How come these weeds aren't pulled? All of that it just takes manpower and time and work, and we're working through it. I don't have the silver bullet on it right now. I'm working with that company, the current maintenance company. I'm working with our management company. I have another guy. I came from Green Farm. I went back to office for an hour to print some things and came back. But I met a company after going through 17 companies that we've tried to get to do mass weed cutting and mowing, not just in Green Farm. I have 4 other communities that have weed needs. This guy's promising. Friday, he's committed to me to have a crew of 4 guys out there, and he's got a lot of weeds to work through. It's not the master HOA portions. There are some areas, but above all, the current landscape maintenance company, has committed to me by next Monday the path that has been shown, the concern has been raised on, that's part of the master. The rest of it's all, the stuff you've heard about is not master. That's, well, the 2 corners are. Anyway, long story short, it's not an easy management. Eventually, this gets turned over to homeowners, like other sub-communities have been in there, and they'll deal with the same issues. We're trying to work through it, and we're trying to find answers, and we'll continue to do it, and we'll continue to work through it. I don't know how best to answer it other than, again, some like HOAs, some don't. This kind of community requires HOAs, and we try and do our best to set them up right and get them funded and working. And we're dealing with a lot of historical stuff in this maintenance that we're just trying to work through. So
Mike, I can sense your sincerity, and I realize there's been a lot of issues going on. I think the one piece that would be missing is more communication right now with these people. I understand you have challenges. I think their concern is that they never hear anything. Is that a fair statement. I think as you are trying to overcome these challenges, it would be helpful to you to share those challenges. We don't expect you to do miracles, but I think the communication is going to be the key to helping them understand what's going on.
So one of the challenges of that is that they are the association.
Right.
I'm not. I'm not an owner in there. I'm not a member of the association.
Aren't
I'm a
you
member of
the
the board.
Master
We're a
Association?
member of the Master
right now?
Association Board. But we're not the association. The association is every member, every resident who currently owns a home in there. We have
Is
a
there a
management
head of
company,
the association? How is the association set up, the homeowners association?
so they're all have a share membership in an association.
Do they have a president or?
Well, the board is Nielsen Homes currently.
Currently, we're the board. Usually,
Okay.
the declarant retains management of the board through the time that they're developing and getting the project finished, and then it gets turned over. We just did that turnover with the Fields phases 1, 2, and 3 last fall. Their sub-association, I think it's this winter. During the time of declarant, it's called declarant control or developer control. We manage it, we steer
Right.
it, we work with. But the reason we hire a management company is it would be it's a full-time job for 2 or 3 people
I
to
would
manage
just,
an HOA of this
I would
size.
just suggest that however it works out, however you guys end up with a homeowners association, that this is going to be a key part of a successful homeowners association ever, is being able to communicate and keep others apprised of what's going on. So in your role as that, helping them to establish a way that they can get up and successfully move forward would probably be helpful.
So I don't disagree with you. They have that now. And they have the ability to go through a homeowners association portal through the manager
Submit a
to file
complaint.
complaints, claims, or issues. Those are not always dealt with immediately or quickly because if I were answering emails if I were answering everybody, if they all emailed me directly, I wouldn't have any time to do any work.
So they go to the management company, is
They
that
have
where
that
their
now.
emails?
Yeah,
Their
and-
emails are going to the manager company who is not,
Management company kind of partitions the issues.
It's not a management company issue, if that's what you're getting at.
no, I'm just wondering where the communication breakdown is. That's what I'm wondering.
It doesn't break down, the management company tells me, we got problems with weeds, or actually, that's not
think-
my job. They tell their
I
maintenance
think what
company.
she's getting at is that it's your responsibility to communicate to the residents where you're at on the projects and why you're delayed, and possibly maybe do that through the newsletter, through the management. I mean, they have they send emails to all of the residents, so they have an email list, and you could communicate that through that way.
I think just
That's what
knowing
she's
that they've
getting at.
been heard and understanding there are challenges, but they feel they've been heard would be a big step forward, I hope.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We can do that. We can definitely do that better. There's a lot of work that goes on with the city and with the residents that we need to communicate better as an HOA. We have an open portal.
Brian,
I think
can you
Mike's
can you
being
speak
a
in the
little,
mic?
sorry. Yeah. I think Mike is describing well the FCS side of the process in terms of getting concerns and specific things over to us. And so we do take those concerns seriously. But I think in terms of the actual updates and communication and community center, I mean, we just broke ground on the community center. These pavilions will be going in soon. It needs to be done. It needs to be done more thoroughly and efficiently. So we
I
can do
think
better at that.
updates would go a long way to helping your credibility.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
I have a slightly different opinion on that.
Okay.
To illustrate my concern,
Uh-huh.
I was here when you guys initially came in for the rezone. And you had all of the illustration slideshow up here just telling how amazing this place is going to be. These residents got sold the same way. And I imagine, based upon those slideshows, they saw illustrations of all the open space, all the features. And to them, it was like they're going to build into a brand new subdivision on a new golf course. And some of them have been there 3 years and the golf course isn't there yet. They paid premiums for their lots knowing this open space was going to come in. And that's the most frustrating thing is they don't have that yet. And that's what they moved here for. Even our friends from California that moved here, they're our residents now. We love them all, but they bought into something that they haven't seen yet. And I can appreciate that. I think that's the biggest concern they have. So we understand all the issues that have come along the way. We understand the turnover. But they paid a premium for something they haven't got yet. And so that's a big concern. I'm ready to talk about Rocky Mountain Power if you want to move on to that.
Sure.
Awesome. So I read through the 163 pages that you sent over.
That's not all of it. I could have sent probably another 200 pages, because that's just my correspondence. I have
Okay.
two assistants that I've had between that time that both have had. So there's a lot.
Gotcha. So the first email that you had on there was September 12th of 22. And then there's no other emails until February 1st of the following year. Did anything happen as far as communication back and forth during that period?
Probably, but it would have been done by my assistant. Who's no longer there, and I don't have access to that email. I know that we didn't need power till spring. And so typically, if we engage, when the information that you see from February on, that should have all, in other jurisdictions, in this Ogden jurisdiction, I'm learning a lot. In Davis County, other jurisdictions I work in,
With Rocky Mountain Power.
with Rocky Mountain Power, it would take me typically 5 to 6 weeks total to go from start to finish to get a power ped approved and in. I won't go through all the frustrations I have with this particular estimator and the guy that is our contact there, but it takes forever to get anything done. And I have to involve, you'll see that there's certain people added to the emails. Kirk Nigro is one. When I include him on it, things seem to happen again, but then they dwindle off. I won't go into any more detail. I don't want to disparage anybody on the public record, but I'm frustrated. It should never have taken this long to get power peds in, ever.
I would agree with that. So I had conversations with Rocky Mountain Power today, including Roy, and tried to get their side of the situation. They clearly, in your emails, illustrate exactly what needs to be completed for every pedestal. And that today still hasn't been done. And that was, I believe, in May he sent that, the requirements for each pedestal. I see the correspondence back and forth. I see the frustrations of the wet signature and everything else. There's a lot of check marks with Rocky Mountain Power, but I also feel we probably could have did a better job of project management to make sure this happened.
I won't disagree with that.
And also on their side, I mean, they missed that email on March 3rd and didn't get back to it for several weeks, 3 weeks, I believe it was.
I won't disagree with that. And I'm not
So
throwing
both
Rocky Mountain Power
sides
on the bus.
are failing, but when we get the report back that it's all on Rocky Mountain Power, I don't think that's fair for each of these areas to be turned over, that we're waiting on them. It was all them going through these emails. Also, your emails stopped on August 3rd, and I understand there's a bunch of correspondence between then and the 10th. Kind of interested to see what's in those. They kind of give me an idea what was in those, of areas where they've come out and looked at it again and again. It's not done to what they specified in May. The concrete did get poured. I saw that this morning. I drove through there. That's all good. But the addresses on all the pedestals, once they know that's in, a simple picture, that's all they're asking for, and they're going to come out and they're going to do the inspection and then schedule for service. So unfortunately, you have a lead time on that. They told me they were 3 to 4 weeks for service and 4 to 6 weeks for any transformer. And so,
What you don't see in all that is all the correspondence and calls, and there's balls dropping on both sides. But I will take responsibility for some management of that. I will. There's no excuse.
And fair to their side, they said they obviously probably made some mistakes as well. But knowing that you had the requirements very specifically since May, and they're still not completed today, it's hard for us to see this report saying that it's all on Rocky Mountain Power. As soon as they give us power, we're good. Well, they've made it very clear in these emails you provided of what they needed done.
So the statement isn't inaccurate. As soon as we get power, I can fire those landscape, all that stuff up. Those lights are ready to fire up at the pickleball court as soon as I get power. All of the minutia that goes into getting it, yeah, there's a list, but that list doesn't tell you that once I do one step, then it's got to go back to them. They got to review it and do it. Their inspector has to go back out. Well, the inspector goes out and says, I want this buried before I inspect it. Well, the guy in the office said he wanted us to leave it open so you could see it. There's just that stuff going back and forth. We have ground rods installed and wired up for the pedestals. Had the inspector from the city come out and inspect them. He failed us on 3 because he said there weren't ground rods. There were, he just didn't see where they were connected. I don't want to blame him, throw him into this. It's just there's little steps in between that list of things that Roy said that needs to happen. And those things, they don't all happen in a day. They don't all happen at turn on dime. I will take full responsibility for some of the mismanagement, for the mismanagement on our end. That's on me. That's on me.
Is there, so one of the explanations, Mike, that we've given, I guess, is the power on the pavilions being a challenge. Is there any reason, like we've done with the pickleball court lights, that we couldn't go build those pavilions
That's what we're doing.
and just plumb it for?
And they might
electrical?
bring power to us before they're done. That's great.
We're going to keep pushing.
We're
on that,
generating
obviously,
them,
but there's no excuse for us not having built those pavilions. I mean, we had some internal design issues that our designer was kind of thinking about one thing but didn't realize. Anyway, we've got explanations as to why there's a couple months delay here and there, but nothing that justifies us going past June on those pavilions as well. So I think yeah. Did you have other specific questions you wanted to ask about Rocky Mountain Power?
No, but over there for that area, as far as that pedestal to provide power, they need a transformer installed. That's gonna be 4 to 6 weeks out. They can't schedule that until you guys pay for it, which
Everything's
I think
been paid.
the contract was sent to you today is what they've told me.
No, everything on all 5 of those have been paid for some time.
So the design, something to do with the design for that area just got approved by Rocky Mountain Power Friday, and then you guys have to pay the fee.
I'm
And
not
then
aware of
Once it's
that.
paid, they'll schedule the transformer installation, is what they told me. So there's some follow-up there. I get it. It could be challenging working with Rocky Mountain. They're very
Which side are you
detailed
talking about?
people.
The transformer. There's only one transformer that's got to be installed, and it's by the pickleball court.
I believe that's the one,
Okay.
yes.
I'm pretty sure that was paid 2 months ago, a month ago.
They
I'm not aware of what he's saying was
didn't
just sent
approve it
over.
until Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm not
and
aware
he
of
said he
that.
wrote the contract for you guys to make payment on today. And then once payment's received, it's 4 to 6 weeks for the transformer. It's 2 to 3 weeks for the service crew to pull the wire. So, I mean, it
I'll look into
stretches
that
everything.
and respond back to you directly if I could,
Absolutely.
because I'm not aware of that.
I
so.
think if you would respond back to Amy, she can.
I'll let him shoot it to all of you. Yeah, I just am not aware of. I'm pretty sure we got the contract on that transformer several weeks ago. I could be wrong.
So in the email, I see that you guys are addressing that, saying, have you not ordered it yet? Is there delays in ordering? They responded back saying, no, we have it. We're just waiting for you to do the steps. Which again, they probably don't give you the best checklist to know what to do.
Well,
That sounds like it's-
what you don't see in all that is originally Roy wanted to have us bore under the pickleball court and take it all the way over to 4700 to get to put a 3-phase connect. And we spent a month and a half haggling over this idiotic. Sorry, geez, I shouldn't.
You're okay.
This plan that made no sense. Try and get an approval to go under that canal with a bore. Really difficult.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we spent time haggling. So I will look into that. Yes, we'll address that.
Wonderful. Do you mind forwarding those emails between August 3rd and the 10th to
Not
the
at
city? That'd be awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I've pretty much opened my kimono by giving you all these emails. I didn't go through them, and is there anything I said that I don't want the city to see? I just pulled them all.
Emails from
and-
August 3rd to August 10th?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he said, I think there was 13 correspondence between that period of time, which was not in our emails.
Boy, you sound like you got a lot more response out of him than I do. I need to hire you to be our liaison.
Right.
He was helpful, but again, yeah, I'm a different entity, right? I'm not contracting with them.
Did you talk to Roy?
I did.
Brian, do you know that is he specifically talking about the pickleball transformer? For sure.
Yeah.
Because there are 3 or 4 things that we're coordinating with Rocky Mountain Power on right now. That's one of them.
And the
Brian,
transformer
will you
and the
use the
sidewalk.
mic? Will you use the mic?
Sorry,
It's really
I'm
hard for
sorry.
them to hear in the
Yeah,
back if
I
we
just
don't use
don't
the
want to
mic.
hug Mike. Okay.
I stand.
You can move the mic.
That's it. That's all there's just a couple different issues, and I want to make sure we're not crossing paths. It probably makes sense just for us to send an email to Roy saying, hey, these are the 4 things that we're working or coordinating with you on, so that you've got them all right there, so that we're all on the same
I'll
page.
pull everything that I've gotten from Roy and everything Claire's gotten from Roy since August 3rd. no problem.
That'd be awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else on RMP?
The transformer in the sidewalk, what's the situation with that one?
I can address that. I think I tried to explain the situation in the correspondence that I've sent to whomever. I'm not sure if you've all seen it. That transformer in that sidewalk was brought to my attention a little over a month ago, right around there by Ed or somebody. Not sure why it's that way. I believe those homes were finished a couple years back, and typically something like that is not allowed to be pushed beyond, or to just let go. I think I offended Ed, and I didn't intend to, when I said that this is typically caught when a building permit is pulled. We pay a bond. It's an improvement bond. The building company pays an improvement bond, and it says that they're going to fix any concrete that is broken or destroyed in the city right of way before they get their certificate of occupancy. I sent a letter back saying, hey, this is something that I've inherited. It doesn't relate to me at all because it's part of the home building. It had to have been hit somewhere in the construction of one of those two homes. Long story short, I'm charged with dealing with it. So I reached out to Roy. Roy said, "Oh, this is it's been moved. We're gonna have to dig it up, probably put a new pedestal, put a new base in. We can do that, but I got to get a contract approved through my manager. Yada 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 yada." We've been going back and forth. As soon as I get that, and I don't know that I have it, I need to talk to my assistant Claire tomorrow and see if she has seen it yet. But as soon as we get that approved contract that he's gotten through his manager, we'll request a check. I can't get a check in a day. It takes me about a week to request a check from our accounting staff and go through that process. We'll get the check over there, and then it's back in their court because they have to do the work. They have to dig it up, replace it. Why it got there, I don't know. We want to get it fixed. I'm frustrated I have to deal with it on our end, but it is what it is. But we will do everything we can to expedite once we get it. Again, I have some delays on our end with whether it's requisitioning checks, whether it's getting signatures from the guys who are authorized to sign some of these things. That takes time, but we'll do what we can to expedite that. It is a trip hazard, and if we need to go out there and put something there, it's been there for 2 years, but if it's now become a problem, I'm happy to paint it orange. They're going to pull it out anyway. We can go spray paint that orange, paint whatever, so people don't trip on that. But the fact that it sits 2 inches into the sidewalk makes no sense to me. Some sidewalk guy decided it was okay to pour around it, and I don't get that.
So I've never heard of anything from the city side on that. I just heard it from Rocky Mountain today, so.
So, just so that the last email that Ed received was August 9th, so it was last Wednesday, that said, and this is what it stated: I just submitted the job to my manager for pre-approval. Because of the type of job that it is, it does take one more approval step before I can send the work agreements to Nielsen Homes. I'd say 1 week or less for that process.
We have not received a work agreement yet.
So that was the last thing that Ed received. So I can follow up with Ed on Tuesday. He's out until next Tuesday, but I can follow up with him and see if he's received anything more regarding that. But that's part of some of the holdup is I believe that Mr. Avery was on vacation, like in July, like in the middle of July. And so that held some of it up, but as to getting an answer as to how to proceed. But that's based upon the emails that Ed provided me from Mr. Avery.
Okay. One question for the interim city managers. You may not know the answer. So there was I don't know if it was a delay, but there was a period where the ground rods needed to be inspected by the city. Do we know if that took longer than normal? Is that something we need to look at?
He was out there within a few days.
He was right there, and then he came back to
In
re-inspect.
fact, he met our electrician out there and admitted that, oh yeah, there they are. It was an innocent thing. He just didn't see it.
Okay.
It got taken care of. Yeah.
Okay, so we didn't hold you up on that.
Not at all. I wouldn't put any blame on him.
Awesome.
Other than he just didn't see it the first time, and that happens. So.
Okay. Good. So Mayor Pro Tem, how do you want to guide the discussion going forward now after we've discussed the items and the deficiencies?
Well, the council needs to decide, are you wanting to have them present more information in a few weeks? Do you would like to put them in default?
I don't know whether or not we have quite enough, I mean, possibly enough for default on like the pavilions and the, I mean, they are in default when it comes to the pavilions and the water, feature and the benches. However, practically speaking, one, there's not enough money in the escrow account for what they're saying is going to be the cost of the water feature. We have 153,000 in there. In order, because I'm just saying, you know, absolute worst case scenario, which I wouldn't necessarily advise on this, but absolute worst case scenario, we say we're just going to finish everything. I mean, if you put the water feature in, there's no way that we'd have enough money to finish, you know, everything else that just needs to be done. If you did a different feature, you know, maybe something like what they're suggesting, then you might, but it's just the practical aspect of, all right, finishing it, you know, because that's really what your worst case scenario is. If they can't, I mean, if we issue a default, they have a certain amount of time to cure. And whether or not, and if they don't cure, then that's when you'd have to decide whether or not you're taking the rest of the money in the escrow. So, yeah, they haven't done what they're supposed to, and but whether or not that's where you want to go, just practical aspect of it, versus making them come back either the first or second meeting in September and make them report.
You know, my view of this is default is only going to delay the situation longer. I am not in favor of issuing a default. I'm in favor of letting them do what they've promised us here tonight, report, communicate, and come back and let us know how things are. At that time, it might be time to talk about a default, but I think what everyone here wants is for this to be completed. I'm not sure that more, you know, city interference in making them default would be helpful in this situation. I understand there are challenges, and we don't mean to rake you through the coals, or maybe some people do, but I understand that you are trying to move forward. I would give you the benefit of the doubt right now, have you come back in September and very clearly let us know your challenges, what's been done, what hasn't been done, and just keep us apprised. I would also suggest that you plan a walkthrough for these neighbors so that they can personally tell you what their concerns are, and you can hear that as well as anyone else from the council who would like to go. But that would be my suggestion, is let's not delay this any longer. Let's just get to work.
Yeah, and to add to that, Kim, I think the community walkthrough, we will get that scheduled in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'd like to have a city walkthrough before that next city council meeting that we're proposing, if this is acceptable to the council, and then the city council meeting. I guess my thought, Amy, you said, I guess I heard 2 dates. It's September and October. I think a lot of the things that we've talked about in here are completion in end of September. So if there's any way to kind of shoot for that first October meeting, I think that
I would suggest that you come back I mean, frankly, my suggestion is going to be that you come back in September and October. I'm kind of big into, you know, make them appear, and also that they have to provide. So, like, if we made them come back on the 20th of September meeting, the packet is prepared on the 14th, but I would say that they need to provide like a report, like what they just handed you. I mean, they've provided this before, but I mean, they handed you with this color copy and have it updated, but it be provided before the 14th so that Brock and Ed and, you know, Scott can all go out and look at this and do basically what we had them do with the staff report to begin with, that they were able to, the 4 of them, because Sherry was with them, that the 4 of them were able to combine and say, these are the very specific problems that the city is having, and So then that can be in the packet for you guys to review when it goes out on the 14th.
So that report needs to be done by what date again?
Well, that's what we need to decide. I mean,
The other thing is we need to decide if we're okay with switching from the water feature to the other.
because that needs to, if that's the case, then it needs to be put on the next planning commission meeting.
I think we have to agree to that. Obviously, they can't have a water feature, so I would agree to something that is very outdoorsy, can be watered efficiently and looks nice. We can't make them do a water feature with no water.
I'd be in favor of that too. It seems like the other water feature's not working that great anyway, so, you know, I think we should send that on, but how does everybody else feel?
Amy, if we venture down the default road tonight, what does the impact have on Green Farm? Because last year when we did this, you guys jumped to work. I mean, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, you guys did amazing things because you were kind of forced to. So if we choose to go that road tonight, I think we were holding up that rental condo subdivision application, but what would default mean tonight for them?
Hold on just 1 second. Of all the documents, I did not bring the original MDA. I apologize. So hold on just one moment.
Carrie's got it.
I do
Have
have
it, Carrie?
it. Yes. The amendment?
Nope, I need the original, because that's what has the default language in it. Which I can tell you, just
Of the original?
original.
Thank you very much. I do have a large stack of MDA papers, multiple MDAs.
Well, I'm appreciating it this evening because that is the only one that I didn't have. So just one.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'm okay, and especially you should come back again September and October to show your progress, but those have to have deliverables, not, okay, we're gonna come update everybody and we were only able to do this. I think you need some serious, this is what we will have done.
And I think those are clear. I think those are clearly documented in what we've shown here. Those dates are real, and we plan to stick to those dates. So we'll give you updates based on the dates that we've proposed, if that's acceptable.
And then what happens if they're not? Right, that's the issue. Well, we're gonna come and tell you, this is our dates, we got it. Well, actually, you know, we had other things come up, and then they're saying, right?
I guess I'm just not sure. What do you want from me, Carrie? What do I tell you to? There's backup to all of these items. There's backup to all of these dates. I'm not as thorough nearly as Mike, and I think we should all be grateful that Mike is here. He's got backup before he gives a date. He's very cautious about giving those dates, and we have a plan to accomplish these things by these dates. So I'm not, unless you want to go through each one and we can tell you what our specific plan is. I get that our word doesn't maybe mean much to you right now. I don't know what to say. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
I guess it's just hard for me to say, you say, well, we have dates, this is it, but we've had dates before.
And we've met a lot of those
Right.
dates. Yeah, we're missing 3 things right now, and we've met a lot of those dates. So you're right.
So to your dates again, I shared those with Rocky Mountain Power.
Yeah.
And here you put in here, hopefully that will be there approved by the 18th. They said there's no way that's going to happen.
Well, I think the pavilion could be built if that's the date that you're talking about.
So all the pedestals, the 5 pedestals.
Yeah.
So they need to come out and inspect that, but they won't do it until you get the address nameplate on. The concrete has been poured, but they won't even schedule that inspection. They said there's no way it's happening by the 18th.
So sorry, I was talking about. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. And then you have I think it's 3 to 4 weeks from there for them to pull the service to each pedestal to get on their schedule.
It's all estimated.
Again, so,
Clearly, Roy's given you a different story. By the way, I just received an email from my assistant, said that at 4:22 today, and I just pulled up the email, Roy sent that agreement over. So he didn't send it last Friday, and I was mistaken that it had already been paid. But that transformer email just got sent at 4:22
yes, and he said he
today.
was sending that today. So
Yeah, he
the
said it was sent Friday.
approval entity before him approved it on Friday afternoon. And then, so from there, he got to it today, so.
My thought was, where's what number are you looking at, Craig, on the? Or
He's
sorry,
talking about
Ryan,
the
on
power, right? When I
we-
put this
we
together
can't-
on the 10th, they were all estimated dates.
I
I
thi-
can't commit to when power can go in and can't go in.
So yeah, we have no control over power. We have some control. Obviously, we have to do our part in the process, and I think better communication with them and with you to let them know. I think maybe we will just copy Amy on communications that we're having with Roy, just to make sure there's a stream of communication and you know what's happening. In terms of the construction of the pavilions, though, we can build those and get it connected so that once power from Rocky Mountain Power comes in, we can make that connection. Is that acceptable?
I mean, that's probably the only way we could go forward, right, with not knowing where they're gonna land. I agree with
No
you.
other power source than Rocky Mountain.
No, I
It's part of the
understand.
problem. They're a monopoly, and I can't push them, pull them to do anything
Gotta love
other than
utilities.
what their time. What was that?
Gotta love utilities, yeah.
And you know what? It's a love-hate relationship, because
It is.
But it's probably justifiable to update this based on the information that we have now from
sure,
Rocky
this,
Mountain Power.
this was sent on the 10th, and
So we have Rocky Mountain Power kind of call outs for the specific things that we now know more information on. But everything else, I think these dates they do have a backup. They have a plan behind them, so.
But at the beginning, Councilmember Call, you used you mentioned that words matter. I can't remember how you said it, but you said the way you phrase things. I am by nature, I'm hesitant to commit to dates if I can't control it. And that's why you'll see in there anticipated by, expected by, there's other terminology used too. I can update this and I can keep this updated over the next few weeks and send it to you each time I update it. Give you new input. Maybe I truncate it down to just the things that are the key bullet points and not all the minutia, so that it's not 3 pages, small type, but so that you can be apprised of where we're going. If we're trying to hit the 20th and it's and the deadline's the 14th, or the packet's the 14th and the deadline's the 13th, or prior to that to getting it in.
I want it to be
All of a
before
sudden,
that.
I just lost a couple weeks in. I mean, there's a lot that can get done in those 2 to 3
Well,
weeks of September.
My problem is that you were given a deadline of noon last Thursday, and
I get it.
you said that you misunderstood. You're working on it. You provided, you didn't provide it till about 4:30, and then you provided the rest of it
On
the next
Friday.
day. So that's my problem as to what deadline to give
Yeah.
you, because, and
I-
it's
I
not
get-
just you.
I get it.
It's been all along missed deadlines as to when we need documentation. So that's one of the reasons why I just figured we needed to talk through this. And I know, based upon what you've already put in here and what I've gone through, that you won't have everything done. There are certain deadlines that you've proposed for the end of September, and that's not going to, you're not going to be completed, but you will know whether or not you will be able to complete
Yeah,
it by
I'll have
September
some-
30th.
yep.
If you have, to answer your question, Councilmember Swap, when it comes to the default, this is what has to happen. That if the city decides that the default has been committed, that they'll provide courtesy notice to the notice to the default to the developer, and you have to outline claim of default, identification of provisions, identify why the default is claimed to be material, optional proposed cure, and so you can actually state city may propose a method and time for curing the default, which will be of no less than 60 days duration. Then the parties have to meet and confer, and that the city and the developer has to meet within 15 business days of any recommendation for the default. And then remedies, that's when withholding future further development approvals, enforcement of security, legal remedies, and so that's what you're looking at.
Does development approval include occupancy?
The right to withhold all further reviews, approvals, licenses, building permits, and/or other permits for development of the project in the case of a default by a master developer, or with a default by subdeveloper, development of those parcels owned by the subdeveloper until the default has been cured. So approval and/or other permits for development, yeah, it could possibly.
Now, I don't like that at all because that affects our new incoming residents, obviously. But if we're gonna default them, we need to know that there's some teeth in that, so we are sure they're gonna follow through with all the items. Sorry, my back's turned to you the whole time.
It's all right.
Rude.
It's all right.
I mean, some of the stuff is supposed to be, their claims are it's supposed to be done by the end of this month. So whether, and I'm not saying one way or the other, as to what you should do. I'm just saying, you know, whether or not you wait until September and see if they've completed the stuff that, you know, would be done by the end of August, or whether or not, I mean, 15 days out is the end of August. I mean, I don't know. This is a total policy question for you guys to decide as to how you want to proceed with it. I think everybody just wants it done, but how do you get from A to B? Sometimes the shortest direction is C, but that's up to, you know, you guys are going to have to make that decision.
So to, wish Sherry was here, so as far as future development, what is going on right now with that rental condo subdivision area?
I can't answer that question, and
Does that
I
put
can
that on
ask
hold?
Alika tomorrow about it, but I don't have that information tonight, and Sherry's
Okay.
gone.
Do you mind if I give you an
Yeah, please.
yeah. So it's been approved. It's ready for a pre-con. We've intentionally held off on holding a pre-con meeting on that. For a variety of reasons, one of which we know that we need to get some things done. But that hasn't been, we haven't started anything. It's been, Village Green Farm Phase 1 has been given final approval, and it's pre-con ready, so.
So with all due respect, I am leery of pushing this out 15 days and see where they come back. We've been here last year. We were in the same thing where we're not getting much done. I know you're working on it. We've heard the processes that you're going through. For me, I would rather do the default and still see where they come in 15 business days like the requirement says, and ensure that we're moving forward in the right direction. The pavilion was 6-1. The water feature was 6-1. I didn't catch the date on the park benches, but that one was probably 6-1 as well.
Hold on, I can tell you. Actually, that one, dedication was anticipated for June 1st, but it was supposed to be 12/31/2022 for that hardscape. But there's also the issue.
You said the park bench was 12/21/22?
Yeah, but there's also been the issues with Rocky Mountain Power, whether or not that's, and so that's, it, you know, the water feature and the pavilions are a lot cleaner, you know, as to what, as to missing that, but I mean, the park benches are, you know, they should have been in, regardless of the issue with Rocky Mountain Power.
Incidentally, all but two of those park benches are in. The two that aren't in, they were misordered, or not misordered, they were not supplied correctly by the supplier, so they've been in for about a week now. But that doesn't, all but two, in area 3 there, so.
You know, I am not in favor of defaulting tonight. I think it's just going to delay the process. But you have to know that we are serious about. My view would be let's give them a couple more weeks. Let's have them come back in September. And if we're not satisfied with what's going on, understanding there may be circumstances, I would seriously consider a default at that time.
Well, Mike, to come back to what we're talking about in wording, I hate ambiguous words. I really do. That was a big deal to me when I first came on the council. We went through a lot of ordinances. We pulled these words out like, this is what it is. In using those kind of essentially ambiguous terms in this amendment, but that you were supposed to provide these things. So that was kind of the, okay, maybe this isn't the great wordage, but here's how we're going to make sure that this happens. And you didn't do that. So I kind of on the long lines with Ryan that Where's the teeth, right? We're going to come back to the same thing. That's why you're asking me, what do I want? I can't exactly say, I guess, except from past experience. How do I know this isn't going to repeat? Right? You've had deliverables, you haven't made those. You talk about the reasons why it hasn't happened, and then we talk about other things, and you say, okay, yeah, I'll take credit for that. Not credit, but responsibility for that. So I'm just having a really hard time.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both Councilmember Call and Councilmember Swap that, I mean, I'm not, great that you've done so much work, great that you've gotten 85% of it done. However, you've had 4 years to do that. And I mean, I feel like last year we put you in default, and that should have been enough for you to say never again, yet here we are again. So it's concerning to me that we're back here again talking about projects that have not been completed on time.
I don't know. I guess I just continually hear things that I disagree with. You know, you're saying, well, we had this really long winter, which we did. I have snow in my yard in April, and then all of a sudden it got hot. It didn't. It was a fantastic spring. The 4th of July was the best 4th of July we've ever had, right? It was not 1,000 degrees sitting at the parade. Okay? We own a business. It functions outside. It was wonderful, right? We could get all of this work done. In the winter, horrible, right? But we enjoyed a fantastic spring. So when I hear you say stuff like that, like, here's the other excuse, it's hard stomach.
Well, I have the same issue with that because, again, you've had 4 years to get this done. One summer, one spring, or one crazy wet winter shouldn't.
Negate the other 4 years. Yeah.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
But August was when a lot of the timelines were committed to. Before August, those timelines weren't as explicit. So we've had 9 months to get all of this stuff done. In reality, I guess that's our perspective.
You see it as 9 months. I see it as you've had 4 years to get this done.
Well,
Ryan?
guess I'm last, but I'm willing to, I would be willing to, have you come back and report in September, and then have some of these things that obviously can't be done by then, need to be done by the end of October, in my opinion. And then we can look at the default would be the way I'd prefer to go. We're all very unhappy to see this come back to us, because I really had hoped that we wouldn't see this again after the first time. But I work in business. I occasionally work with Rocky Mountain Power and UDOT, and I know that they're difficult to work with, and certain individuals within those entities are more difficult than others. And so I understand what Mike's saying there and those things, but I also understand what Councilmember Swap's brought to our attention, that they've been very specific, it sounds like, with what they needed, and those things haven't been done. So that's concerning. And I realize there's some back and forth there. There's probably not everything that we're seeing, because I get it. I've been there. But we need to, this has to be it. This has to be the last time for me. So that's my 2 cents.
So, Amy, there's a possible action on this item, right?
That is why we put it on the agenda that way, so you can make that. Basically, if you wanted to do the default, you would have to direct the city manager to issue that notice of default. I'm just going to be honest, it'll take a couple of days for me to put it together. Just, there's some other things going on.
Right.
But, and then it would be 15 business days to for us to sit down, do the meet and confer.
I would move that we issue a letter of default.
You prepared for that motion there, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah.
And then on the water feature, we need to decide as well.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second that, yes. But I hope we could add a little bit to that. So we have the default. I hope we still move forward and have a walkthrough next week. We include the correct people. We're chasing down all the requirements for Rocky Mountain Power, so they're no longer excused. Take pictures, send it to them, schedule our inspections. Like, these are all expectations to go forward. So I guess I would only add that they provide at least a weekly update through the interim city manager of the processes of how we're picking up the pace.
Should that be in this motion?
I think so.
Okay. Then I still move.
Okay, second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second with all these additions to the motion. I don't know how to say that.
Did Emily get all of the additions
things
to the
that-
motion?
Ryan said? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to put Nielsen Green Farms under default with the additions that Councilmember Saunders has
Swap.
swap. There's
And
too many
Saunders.
of you.
I am asking for that we get rid of the.
Water
You
feature.
could
We
make
can
that
make
as
a
a
We
separate-
should
second.
probably make that
Let's
as
do
a
a
second
second one.
motion.
Okay. So we have a motion to default. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So we have 3 ayes and 2 nays. Motion passes. Do have a
Did you want to
motion
make a
on that?
motion on the water feature?
I'll make a motion that we allow them to put something in place of the water feature and come back to the planning commission with that.
Could I ask for some discussion prior to that being seconded?
Sure.
So I can't recall when the water feature was done. Was that before my time? Was that something I didn't understand?
The water feature came into play with the Third Amendment.
Okay.
And I think part of it, and Brian can correct me, but I believe that Nielsen Homes was planning on doing that before. Part of the thing with the open space, with the Second Amendment, it was debated in there as to whether or not the city would take all or some of the open space. My understanding with the water feature was it was going to be, originally they were planning on that Nielsen Homes was going to control it with the HOA, and that wasn't going to be, it wasn't necessarily intended to be turned over, but it was a possibility. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, I think all of the open spaces.
Need to move over to the mic.
All of the open spaces that were talked about in Mike's exhibit. I think all 3 or 4 of those areas were on, as part of the Third Amendment, were being considered as HOA owned and maintained open space versus city owned and maintained open space. And I think all of you were here when we made those motions or votes or whatever, but the decision was that the city wanted those.
Yeah, to take
And
over all of them.
so then as part of that, I think the question is, does I think the water feature was just kind of a big maintenance question that we didn't necessarily finalize at that moment, because I think we proposed it, so it's clear that we did propose it at the time, but I think with the city taking it over, we never had the conversation. Again, lack of communication, we should have been more proactive on that, but it's like, does the city really want that? And based on the changes that have happened in the last year and a half, that's, I guess, the question that we're asking is this something that would be more preferable or something similar to this?
So was the water feature something that all the people that bought parcels in your subdivision were aware of, that it was coming? Or was that something specific on the
I'm not-
illustrations they looked at when they bought?
I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't. It'd be interesting hearing what people have to say. But yeah, I don't know if that was something that was marketed.
I
clearly.
actually don't recall the water feature being in the initial plans. And I know I have at home the very initial layout of the entire subdivision. So I could take a look at that, but I do not recall there being a second water feature in the plans.
And there have been updates to those plans, like updates, I guess, upgrades, like the community center. There's a lot of
Many things have actually changed from the original layout. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not. Yeah. I guess you guys are entitled to kind of think about this however you like, but I guess I'm thinking that this was kind of a decision that we were making, is that we would own and maintain that water feature. And now that the city's taken it over, it's just a question that we should have probably asked at the time, but got overlooked.
So was there any illustrations that we looked at? I don't recall any.
No,
but-
there
so
wasn't.
did we know what we were accepting at that time?
No, I mean, other than just the area, if you, like in the Third Amendment, when you flip through it, there's, some residential plans, there's the street plans, there's the development report format. There's the overall concept plan that shows all of the different open space areas. The thing that was produced, design plans, was the community center. That's in Exhibit E. Like Exhibit F's the cross sections for the street, and then Exhibit G is the improvement agreement sample. So no, we didn't have any, no drawings, no mock-up, nothing like that. And again, it wasn't outlined in any of the other amendments. This was the discussions regarding that specific thing was brought up during the negotiations for this Third Amendment.
You mentioned, was it $60,000, their internal budget for that water feature?
That is my understanding, because that $60,000 is not mentioned in any of the other documents.
Okay.
And we actually went back and looked at the escrow and improvement agreement for the open space, and it is not specifically delineated. I'm just telling you how much there is left, and it's $153,000.
Okay. Again, I did see some heads nod out there that they understood that was gonna come in. I personally don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't buy a lot, so I don't know what was promised.
We have some shaking heads too.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what was promised, but again, if they assumed that the golf course came with a 19th hole that was the water feature, I don't think it's fair for us to strip that from them when we can just provide a different water source. And the city's taking it over, so we would own the meter and have to pay for the water. I think that's a simple approach to continue with it. So I'm not in favor of actually taking that out and making it a dry feature. Just different water source. Again, the city pays the water bill on that going forward because it's our property, our meter. So,
Yeah, to me, it sounds like, though, that it wasn't promised. And so in the interest of, conserving water and still having something that's going to function and be well maintained by the city, I would be in favor of removing it. So, and putting in obviously something else that Nielsen comes and proposes to us that has a little more detail than what we've seen. But
is that going to be by the pond? Is that where the location was?
So we'd replace the pond. Yeah, it'd be in the same location.
Okay.
Or not a pond, where the water feature
It doesn't
would have been.
replace the pond.
The same area that, it's kind of a bean-shaped,
Yeah.
right next to the first roundabout, kind of a bean-shaped area that's not been landscaped yet.
Across from the community center.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
I know
okay.
exactly where it's at.
There's kind of sidewalks all done around it, and it's just this
Yeah,
bean shape with
It's
weeds growing
did you
in it.
say it's next to the community center?
Across the
Yeah,
street.
yeah, okay.
It's in the area 1,
Right.
southwest corner.
There's a roundabout as you come in. It's just right there by that first roundabout. First roundabout? Yeah, first roundabout. Only roundabout.
Again, what I provided is a rough conceptual. We can get a hold of our landscape architect tomorrow and ask him to see if he can quickly get us something that will give you a really good idea, but I think it'll be a really nice replacement for it.
But I appreciate the conversation, and I would love to know if this is a dead issue for you. We don't need to go back to planning commission, so it'd be great to get just kind of a straw poll of how you're feeling about this. So
yeah, we actually have a motion still.
oh, you have got a motion. All right, well, no.
I would second Ryan's motion, and I think that, we need to start being more water conscious, and I would rather have it a non-water feature.
The only way to change what was there is to have to go back.
Yeah,
Right.
because there's two different ways to be able to do an amendment. If it's an allowable administrative action, then like the zoning administrator can do it, but that only has to do with infrastructure, location, and sizing. So like when it talked about in here that they're wanting to move the pavilions, that's a total that can be done administratively because it's not affecting anything. They're putting it on a more level piece, and it's just moving it over 20, 30 feet. The other one is design guidelines, but it's modifications that don't change architectural intent. And removing the water, I believe, is changing the architectural intent.
So would that extend their default until that's solidified with the new plan and new dates for the deliverable? Since we've already passed June 1st?
I don't, can you ask the question one
Yeah,
more time?
so
I
they're
didn't
in default
remember.
of the water feature because they didn't make the date of June 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a direction for them to go if this motion passes, because it has to go to the planning commission, and then there's brainstorming. It could push it out 3-4 weeks until the plan's moving forward, and I'd hate for that to extend the default going that direction as well.
Well, we'd have to extend the default because they are proposing a way to remedy, and if you guys vote to remove that water feature, then it would extend the default, because if they move forward with it, then they're working on remedying the what the issue is. And as long as they're doing that and they're being reasonable, a court would say then that they're attempting to cure, and we're allowing it because if you make that motion to remove the water feature.
So you're saying it won't push it out farther?
It will push the default term out because if you vote to remove the water feature, because there's a certain process. The process is going to take time. They have to go through planning commission.
Does that
to do
require a
the
public
modification.
hearing?
Yeah, they have to have
Yeah.
a public hearing.
You gotta
Because
notice that.
they have to, in order to modify, they have to do it basically the same way that that the MDA was adopted to begin with, which was they had a public hearing. So we have to notice it up for 10 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to make it for next week's planning commission. And the first planning commission that
September,
Yeah, it's a little ways out.
it would be September 13th.
it's a month out.
So you might want to reconsider the motion to default them, because if they're back here on September 20th, if they're in front of the planning commission on September 13th, you'll see the new plans on the 20th.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Councilmember Swap on the water feature.
Yeah, I'm still in favor of putting a domestic meter in, connecting that.
Agreed.
Hoping maybe you guys put a domestic line into the HOA one as well. That would be awesome. And maybe even a plan for maintenance to pull that pump out before the first freeze to make sure it doesn't sit in the water over the wintertime.
Those are designed to stay in the tank. They're not designed to be pulled out. They're hard piped in. They're a
They
submersible.
can withstand being frozen?
They don't. They're below with a yeah. They're not designed to freeze. That's not what why the other one blew up. It was a shortage and a short out and a
Okay.
yeah.
So you would be proposing to use culinary water for the water feature?
Yes, and continue on with the plan. Absolutely.
I wouldn't be in favor of that.
Aren't those water features recycled water from they recycle themselves, right?
It's like a swamp
Yeah,
cooler.
they
There's
do.
a float to
Evaporation,
add some.
Right.
Evaporation,
Right.
and some water loss. So you're still have a constant flow.
Right, okay,
They have a float valve that allows it to turn on and off. if
right,
necessary.
okay.
Does the second still stand? Okay, there's a motion and a second, Mayor Pro Tem.
let's repeat the motion.
So the motion is to remove the water feature and to send that back to planning for an amendment to the MDA to allow Nielsen to present a different option, since they were unable to do that with the secondary water.
I also second, based on the city providing culinary water for a agricultural or an architectural feature. I think it's, in this current water situation, I don't think it's a great idea.
Okay, we have a motion to remove the water feature, which would require an amendment to send back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. Emily, I should have asked in the previous one, does this need to be a roll call? Okay, so all in favor of removing the architectural water feature, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say
Hey.
Nay.
nay. Motion fails. So Emily, back to the default motion. We don't do that very often. Does that need to be a roll call? Okay. Okay. So, do we have anything else
I don't
to
think so.
discuss? Do you gentlemen have anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to agenda item 9, discussion on a work session for grant applications.
Hold on just a second, I have to find my stuff real quick.
Too many papers.
Why the co-interim city managers put this on the agenda was because you mentioned 2 weeks ago at your last meeting that you were thinking you wanted to have a work session scheduled with a map of all of the city properties to discuss possible grant applications. And so we put it back on so you guys could discuss when you might want to do that.
I think it would be a great idea because we are going to approve the personnel policy on the 30th, and it would be at our next work meeting, which would be the 7th, the 6th.
We didn't know if you wanted it to be independent of a city council meeting or if you wanted to,
I think it
I
could
didn't
just
know
be,
how much time, we didn't know how much time you wanted, and
I
Ed
would like
is-
a special session.
Special?
Because also the intent was to look at other parcels within the city and kind of a planning process of acquisition or what to do with ours.
Ed is in the process of putting together that map, showing all of our city-owned parcels
Okay?
to be able to have for you at that special set, if that's,
settle special.
but we needed to know what what your thoughts were as to when you might want to do that. Or if you had any thoughts about it at all. We were trying to follow up and be proactive.
Let's see here.
Everybody get out your calendars.
The first week of October is looking okay for me.
Sorry. How long do you think we would need? Are you thinking, Councilmember Swap? Could we make it part of the work meeting on the 4th, or
Is the
or
4th our next work meeting?
You're talking about October, right?
Yes, October.
So it would be the 4th, wouldn't it?
I would imagine the conversation and strategy would probably take an hour, hour and a half just around this plan.
So what if we could we have an earlier work session that day so that we're making sure that we dedicate enough time, but still not, adding a different day of the week?
I could make that work.
The week of October 5th is our 50th wedding anniversary, and we will be out of town.
I think I'm also out of town that week.
Can it be in September? Is there, I don't know, why were we waiting till October, Ryan?
Oh, I have a busy schedule, so I threw that out.
Okay, okay.
It's convenient for him.
The last week of September, I could definitely make the last week of September work.
That would work as well for me, too.
What about the 20th prior to council, or is that a bad week for you?
It's not going to be great for me, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd hate to push it out to this further into October, so I think the 27th could work.
Well, I guess our meeting on the 30th will probably be longer. So probably not tag onto that one.
Which one's that again? Remind me.
The 30th was to review applications
Yeah,
and
finish the,
the personnel policy.
finish it when it comes to the handbook.
Right.
I mean, you could get, not be very chatty and be all done with the handbook, but probably not. So,
Have you ever known us not to be chatty?
What about prior to the meeting on the 6th of September? Is that an issue?
I will be in San Diego, but I'm planning on calling in on Zoom, so that would work as well for me.
So like a 4:30 meeting instead of 5, give us a little more time.
That's the first day of the ULCT conference. I'm not sure the schedule for that day.
Yeah, that's a little tough, isn't it?
um,
I looked at the
and I just thought of something, depending on where Ed is with the preparation of, do you think he'd have it done by the,
6th.
I think you could, yeah.
okay.
Attorney,
Yes?
if we discuss possible land acquisition during that, does that need to be a special session?
I would advise you to do an
Executive
executive
session?
session.
Executive, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if it's just generally, hey, these are the here's property we have and what you want to look at proposing for grant applications, because we were gonna have Sherry Bingham be there too.
Can we actually do 2 sessions then if he's got something he wants to, in the
Yeah.
same night, in the same day,
You
do
could
an
do that.
executive session and a special session?
Uh-huh.
Or an executive session is part of the special session, and then that way we can still keep it out in the public.
It's an outline 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B.
No, I think that would be
Yeah, you
best.
could do that.
Agreed, okay.
So you're thinking September 6th? Or no?
Gary brought up the
She
issue
said that's
of
the first day of the ULCT conference.
Yeah.
So, oh, that is true. And trying to come back from Salt Lake will probably be an issue.
Right.
Agreed.
So, and Kim's
I'm in San Diego.
20th.
No, the 20th, I'm here.
Thought that was your,
That's
20th
the
is
5th.
bad for
October 5th is my anniversary.
Oh, okay.
So, that
So
would
what
be-
about the 13th?
well, that's planning commission. So unless you have it,
12th?
actually, I can't do the 12th. I have I have Weber Fire District that night.
It's gonna take longer.
The problem with putting it back too far too is Sherry needs some direction to get going,
mean,
right?
Unless you wanted to look at a Thursday?
I only have the 4th through the 8th or the last week in September, unfortunately.
The youth council meets on Thursdays, which would be the second Thursday. So, sorry.
Well, I mean, what about like the 21st, which is a Thursday?
I know it's weird, but
Wait, that's the third.
is there any
That's a
way?
committee meeting.
Is there any way to push back the regular session a half hour
He wants to know, is there any way to push
on
back
the
regular
6th, and then
hour?
we could start the work session at 5. We'd have to leave the ULTC a little bit early, but probably to make that, but then just start the regular session just a little bit
I
later.
wonder if it's not gonna be proposed that we cancel that meeting that day because of the conference. I know we've done that in the past. That's a discussion we haven't had yet, so.
I mean, you could cancel a regular meeting, but schedule a work session at like 6 or 6:30.
That would probably be the best
Let's do
because
that.
I will be in San Diego.
I mean, that'd give you time to be able to, I mean, when's the last session for being held? Does
I don't
anybody know?
remember,
I
Carrie.
don't
do
know.
you?
I haven't looked it up. That's why I'm not sure how.
I would think if we
Yeah, have
were
you
like
looked at it,
at
Emily? Do you know?
6 or 6:30, we'd be okay.
Usually I think they're done by like 4:30, because if they have a barbecue or something that night, they
Should we say 6:30? To
cancel the
8,
regular meeting on the 6th and
have a special session.
have a special session,
and
special work
executive.
session.
And special work session and
Executive session.
man, now I can't say executive.
A canceled council meeting.
We need a motion for all that? To cancel one?
Well, you
Well,
can't
I'm-
make a motion.
I'm just looking it up. On Wednesday, the last thing they have is at 3:15, the caucus meetings, 3:15 to 4:15. So they're done at 4:15.
So should we say 6 or 6:30?
To be safe, you might want to say 6:30.
Gives time to grab a bite and get through the traffic. 6:30? Okay.
Yep.
So you want a work session at 6:30, but also we would need to do an executive session.
Wouldn't the,
Might be easier to do the executive session first, because you have to open up a meeting, then enter into the executive session, close the meeting, and then do the work session right after that.
Oh, agreed, and I think that probably whatever Councilmember Swap wants to discuss may
might
be
have an
important to the
impact.
rest of the meeting, so.
Let's do it.
All right.
Great.
Moving along. All right, item 10, bid award for striping maintenance project.
RFP went out and regarding striping project, and these two contractors bid. All-Star Striping is for $40,900. American Pavement Marking is for $56,745.84. And the council needs to make a decision as to which bid to accept.
So can I ask a question? Is this for all of West Haven striping?
Emily nodded and said
Okay.
yes.
I was wondering if we might want to change the striping on 2550 as you try to pull into Maverick, because do you understand?
I've been asking for a concrete delineator
Right.
there since.
But
I've
if we
been
can't
on.
have a concrete delineator, maybe painting will be okay for a little while.
So which
So
road
what
are you-
happens now is they get into the turning lane, but you're trying to get into Maverick. I would just suggest we move the turning lane east, so that people trying to turn into Maverick can get in there before they get in the turning lane.
It's already painted that way, actually, so.
Is it?
Technically, you're not supposed to turn left against the double yellow into that.
Well, then we need to change it
entrance.
to a single.
But that's why you
yellow.
need the
No, the
concrete
double.
delineator that doesn't allow them to jump the curb.
I'm just
Okay,
kidding.
back to the
Forget
So,
that. Go on,
anyway.
move on.
back to the bid.
I will just have to go straight from now on. I'm sorry. I will do that.
Want a motion?
Ready?
I would move that we accept the bid for the 2023 striping project and award it to All-Star Striping for $40,900.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award the bid to All-Star Striping. Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
Councilmember Swap,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Saunders,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Item 11, discussion and possible action on the Poulter Agreement.
Back in 2019, city entered into an agreement with the Poulter family. We dealt with this actually a couple of months ago when it came to the monument. It was recently brought to our attention that the city has an obligation to install a fence. If you look at the one of the attachments to the agreement, it shows where that fence goes down. And that there's also supposed to be, and I'll just read this, parties agree that after the execution of this agreement and after the perpetual open space easement on parcel B is recorded, which has already happened last year, I believe, the city agrees to fence off and gate an area for the grazing of livestock on parcel C. This grazing area, as constituted together with its gates, is intended to provide and allow access to the grazing area. The fenced grazing area will include access to water for livestock. So, at this point, and a member of the Poulter family came in to discuss this. We're supposed to be meeting with them again tomorrow. Ed and Brock and who else was? And Ryan all went out to the site. Scott? Okay. They went out to the site to look at it, see, just check things out as to where everything was after this was brought to our attention that this needed to be done. And so the proposal now is that we install the fence as we promised to do according to the agreement, but we need to ask the council to decide what the material will be, the fencing material will be. Brock is thinking it might be approximately $23,000 because he's estimating 1,600 linear feet, and this is based on the bid that we got for Prevedale Park's fence. Because the suggestion is that we would do the fencing that would match the other fencing in other areas like Prevedale Park, which would be the buck rail fencing, and especially with the kind of that natural open space, that would be the most aesthetically pleasing, kind of fit in the best in that area. But the bid for Prevedale Park's fence was $14 a foot. So this $23,000 is based on that $14 a foot. We used, from what Brock told me, we used park impact fees for the Prevedale Park fencing, and we could do that with this also.
So just a stupid question, but can't cows get out of that fence?
My understanding is no, but I don't
think
raise
a really
cows.
smart cow could.
I don't raise cows.
Cows are not smart
Okay.
anyway.
Cows are not great on fences, I know
Cattle
that.
is not a smart.
All right, then I'm okay.
Is that what's gonna be in there primarily, or is that horses?
There's horses. I wish I
Is
could
that
remember.
where
They have
Loyal keeps his
the,
horses? Child?
the Poulter family is leasing some of that property to a gentleman who has horses, and he actually took the horses off in anticipation of Nielsen Homes removing the fence to begin with because there's been work and stuff. So there hasn't been any damage to the Poulter family's property, for the horses like moving into their pastures, because the gentleman who is leasing it had already moved them in anticipation of that fence being removed by the Nielsens. Is that correct? Did I get everything right?
Yeah.
Okay. Emily and Ed actually met with the member of the Poulter family the other day regarding the issue. And Emily and I and Ed, who else is meeting with them tomorrow?
That's the meeting Ryan's in.
And Ryan will be meeting from Gardner Engineering. We'll be meeting with the Poulter family at like 4:00 tomorrow to discuss it further. But it's clear from the agreement that we agreed to do it, and so we're asking for you guys to decide what fencing material that we should use and to be able to move forward. And like I said, our suggestion is that it come out of the park
Right.
impact fees.
It would, for me, it would make the most sense to use the buck rail fencing for two reasons. One, that's what's already there, and two, $14 a linear foot is cheaper than a lot of other fencing. So I would say we go with the buck rail and we use park impact fees.
So it's considered a park then, right?
Well, considering where everything is, like with the pond and stuff like that, then yeah, we'll
Okay.
be able to, because this is, the Poulter family property is part of that pond property. Like I said, this agreement, you know, outlined like the monument, because they donated some of their property for where the pond is sitting.
Yep.
Okay, I agree with Nina.
Do you know how much of the impact fees are left that aren't already allocated to the community center and the 2 additional acres?
It's millions.
We are not sure, but we can get you that information.
I think that would be good to know how much money we have to spend. I love the buck rail. I think that's part of our mission statement or whatever, to preserve the rural heritage of our city, and I think that that fence definitely does that.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would move that we use buck rail fencing and pay for that out of park impact fees for the Poulter Farm agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to use park impact fees to pay for a buck rail fence at the Poulter, with the Poulter, under the Poulter agreement. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent. Item 12, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. We are adjourned.